The lobby of Halberg International in downtown Fort Worth, Texas, thrummed with the restless energy of a Monday morning. Shoes clicked sharply against gleaming tiles, a staccato rhythm of ambition and urgency. Employees hunched over smartphones, fingers flying across screens, their voices a low hum of deadlines, deals, and caffeine-fueled determination. Coffee cups were gripped like talismans, steam curling upward as if carrying whispered prayers for productivity. Amid this orchestrated chaos, the cleaning crew moved like ghosts, unseen, unheard, their carts rolling silently, their hands deftly emptying trash bins and wiping down glass conference tables after hours. To most, they were as invisible as the air conditioning's hum, their presence absorbed into the building's pulse without a second thought. Jonathan Kellerman, the CEO, cut through the lobby with his usual brisk stride, his mind already tangled in the day's high-stakes agenda, investor calls, budget reviews, a looming expansion into North Africa. He was halfway to the elevators, his polished loafers echoing, when a voice pierced the morning din. It wasn't just any voice. It was sharp, melodic, and unmistakably Mandarin, rolling with the fluency of a native speaker. Kellerman froze, his briefcase dangling at his side. He hadn't heard Mandarin spoken like that since his last trip to the company's Shanghai office, where even seasoned translators stumbled over idioms. His eyes darted around, expecting to spot an international sales rep or a visiting executive. But what he saw made his breath catch. There, by the touchscreen lobby directory, stood a woman in a burgundy janitor's uniform, her short twists pulled back into a tight ponytail. She was speaking to an older man in a navy jacket, his face a mix of confusion and relief as she gestured calmly, her voice warm yet authoritative, guiding him toward the elevators in flawless Mandarin. Kellerman's pulse quickened. He'd seen her before. Glimpses in the halls after late meetings, always silent, always polite, her eyes lowered unless spoken to. He didn't even know her name. Yet here she was, wielding a language most couldn't pronounce, let alone master, with the ease of breathing. He took a tentative step closer, his curiosity a living thing clawing at him. As he approached, the woman wrapped up her conversation in Mandarin, her words trailing off like a song. Then, without a flicker of hesitation, she turned to a delivery man clutching a clipboard, his brow furrowed over a misdirected package. In fluid Spanish, she unraveled his confusion, her voice steady and precise, sending him off with a relieved, "Gracias." Kellerman's heart thudded, but she wasn't done. A vendor stood nearby, staring at a stack of mislabeled boxes, his frustration palpable. "C'est marqué pour la conférence B, mais c'est à l'autre côté," she said in flawless French, pointing with a faint, knowing smile. The vendor's shoulders relaxed, and he nodded, muttering a quick "merci" before hurrying off. Kellerman's jaw tightened, not from anger but from a searing pang of guilt that hit like a physical blow. He'd built a career in global logistics, leading expansions across continents, hiring translators, crafting cross-cultural programs. He prided himself on spotting talent, on seeing what others missed. Yet here, in his own building, a woman who scrubbed toilets 2 floors below his corner office was the most linguistically gifted person he'd encountered in years. How had this happened? How had he let this happen? He stepped forward, his voice softer than usual, laced with something, almost reverent. "Excuse me?" She turned, startled but composed, her dark eyes meeting his with a quiet strength that made him feel exposed. "Yes, sir," she said, her tone even, unshaken. He forced a faint smile, his mind racing. "That was Mandarin, wasn't it?" She nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yes, sir." "You speak it fluently?" Another nod, steady as a metronome. "Yes, and Spanish, and French." His breath hitched. "Just those 3?" Her lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. Also, Portuguese, German, Arabic, Italian, Swahili, and I read Latin, but I don't really count that. The world tilted. 9 languages. 9. Spoken by a janitor who'd been invisible to him for who knows how long. His mind scrambled to process it, a mix of awe and shame churning in his chest. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Denise Atwater," she replied, her tone carrying no boast, no flourish, just truth, raw and unadorned. He swallowed, his throat tight. "Miss Atwater, are you free for a few minutes?" Her brow lifted, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face, like someone used to being overlooked, bracing for a trick. "Now?" "Yes," he said, gesturing toward the elevators. "I'd like to talk to you in my office." She paused, her eyes searching his for a moment, then nodded. "All right." He pressed the elevator button, holding the door as she stepped inside, her work shoes silent against the mirrored floor. The ride to the 18th floor was heavy with silence, the hum of the lift amplifying the tension. Then, out of nowhere, Denise spoke, her voice low but piercing. "I've worked here for 13 years. Never thought I'd be invited up." Kellerman turned, caught off guard by the weight of her words. A small, almost sheepish smile tugged at his lips. "You might be surprised how quickly things can change." He didn't know it then, but those words were a prophecy, for her, for him, for the entire company. The elevator dinged, and Denise stepped out first, her presence somehow filling the executive hallway despite her unassuming frame. The air smelled of citrus and leather, a subtle scent of power. Kellerman's assistant gaped, her eyes wide at the sight of a janitor beside the CEO. He gave a curt nod, waving off her unspoken questions, and led Denise into his glass-walled office. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please, sit." She sat carefully, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze sweeping the room, not with awe, but with the quiet alertness of someone who'd learned to notice everything. A world map loomed behind Kellerman's desk, its pins marking global outposts. A tray of espresso cups sat on a side table, next to a framed photo of his daughters and a dusty award from a Brussels trade conference. He sat across from her, leaning forward, his voice earnest but tinged with urgency. "Denise, I'm going to be honest. I didn't expect to have this conversation today." She gave a small nod, her face a mask of calm. "But I just heard you speak 3 languages like you. We're born to them. I need to understand. How does someone like you end up cleaning floors here?" Her eyes flicked to the window, then back to him, a storm brewing behind her composure. "You got time for the truth?" she asked, her voice steady, but edged with something raw. "I wouldn't have asked otherwise," he said, leaning closer, his heart pounding with anticipation. She sighed, rubbing her palms together as if coaxing the words to life. "I was born in Toledo, Ohio. Only child. My dad was a pipe fitter, my mom a nurse's aide. They had nothing, but they worked themselves to the bone, preached education like it was salvation. I got a full ride to Kent State, majored in linguistics, was halfway through a master's when my mom got sick." Her voice caught just for a second, a crack in her armor. "I came home to take care of her. Then my dad had a stroke 6 months later. He didn't make it. Everything fell apart after that." Her words were heavy, each one landing like a stone. "I had a baby, no money, no partner who stayed. So, I took what I could get. Grocery stores, nursing homes, temp jobs. Then a custodial supervisor here offered me night hours. It let me pick up my daughter from school, keep the lights on. That's how I ended up here." Kellerman's chest tightened, his breath shallow. He didn't blink, didn't move, just absorbed her story like a man hearing a confession. She tilted her head, as if sifting through memories before continuing. But the languages? I never let them go. I borrowed textbooks, listened to recordings, read newspapers in 5 different tongues just to stay sharp. It's what I do. It's the only thing that makes me feel like I'm still me. Her voice was steady, but there was a quiet ache in it, a longing that cut through the room's polish. Most people never asked, she added, her eyes locking onto his. They saw the uniform and assumed. That word, assumed, hung in the air like a blade. Kellerman leaned back, the weight of her story pressing against his ribs. She cleared her throat, her voice firm again. Look, Mr. Kellerman, I'm not here to make anyone feel bad. I'm not bitter. Life happened. I did what I had to do. I still do. But you asked, and that's the truth. He exhaled, his mind reeling. Denise Atwater wasn't just brilliant. She was a force. Her resilience forged in years of unseen battles. She wasn't asking for pity or a handout. She was offering him a glimpse into a life of quiet, unyielding strength, and it shook him to his core. You ever think about doing anything else? He asked, his voice softer, almost pleading. She shrugged, a small, tired gesture. Sometimes. But dreams don't pay the rent. Silence fell, thick and charged, a moment where the world seemed to hold its breath. Kellerman grabbed his notebook, scribbling furiously. What are you writing? She asked, her calm tinged with curiosity. He looked up, his eyes alight with something new. Ideas. One idea, in particular, was taking root, bold and unyielding, promising to upend everything. Her face haunted him all day, her voice echoing through budget reviews and vendor calls. Denise Atwater, with her calm delivery of 9 languages, her discipline, her heart. It was a revelation he couldn't shake. By 3:45 p.m., he was back in the elevator, descending to the service level, driven by a need to see her world for himself. The air down there was warmer, the walls scuffed and unpolished, a stark contrast to the executive floor's gleam. He passed maintenance crews, break rooms, stacks of bottled water, until he reached the janitorial supply room. There she was, restocking microfiber cloths, her movements precise, almost meditative. Mind if I bother you again? He called, stepping inside. She turned, her eyes widening. You came down here? He smiled, a boyish grin that betrayed his excitement. Couldn't stop thinking about our talk. I need a favor. She wiped her hands on her shirt, wary but intrigued. What kind of favor? There's a meeting upstairs, he said, his voice urgent. A group from Sao Paulo arrived early, and our translator bailed. Can you help? Her hesitation lasted a heartbeat. Portuguese? Yes, I can do that. Minutes later, they were in conference room 4C, where 4 Brazilian executives sat, their discomfort palpable as they scrolled through phones. Denise stepped in, unassuming yet magnetic, and began speaking in Portuguese, her voice smooth as silk. The room shifted. Shoulders eased, eyes lit up, and stilted silence gave way to animated exchange. She wasn't just translating. She was weaving a connection, making each person feel seen. When an executive cracked a joke, she fired back with one of her own, her laugh sparking theirs. Kellerman watched, spellbound, as she turned strangers into allies. He didn't understand the words, but he felt the magic. The meeting ended in 20 minutes, a success no one had expected. One executive turned to Kellerman, his English halting but earnest. She's better than anyone we've worked with. This year. Where'd you find her? Kellerman glanced at Denise, who was quietly stacking cups on a tray. Right here, he said, his voice thick with pride. In the hallway, he caught up with her. You ever do professional translation before? She shook her head. Just helped folks at hospitals, government offices, small stuff. No certificate. No time for school. My daughter needed me more. His heart ached at that. Where's she now? 26. A nurse in Tempe, Denise said, a spark of pride in her eyes. paid for school herself, stubborn like her mama. They shared a smile, the gap between CEO and janitor dissolving for a fleeting moment. Back on the service level, Denise clocked in for her remaining floors. Before she left, she said, "I didn't do anything special today." Kellerman's eyebrows shot up. "That's not how it looked to me." She gave a small smile and walked off, leaving him standing there, his mind ablaze. That night, he sat in his car, the engine off, staring at the building's glowing facade. He thought of the pressure to grow Halberg, the investor scrutiny, the endless talk of diversity and talent. They'd been searching the globe for brilliance, but it had been here all along, mopping floors in silence. The question wasn't just what to do, it was how to make it right. By Tuesday morning, the air felt different. Denise's badge beeped at the wrong time, pulling her from the east lobby where she'd been wiping down glass. Her supervisor, Ron, approached, his face a mix of confusion and unease. "Denise, Mr. Kellerman wants to see you again." Her stomach twisted. "Did I do something wrong?" Ron shook his head. "He didn't say. Just told me to send you up." She cleaned her hands, her heart pounding, and retraced her path to the executive suite. This time, eyes followed her, employees whispering, a receptionist offering a knowing smile. The attention felt like a spotlight, hot and unyielding. Kellerman stood by his office window, coffee in hand, the Fort Worth skyline stretching behind him. "Come in," he called, his voice warm but charged. She stood by the door, bracing herself. He turned, his eyes bright with purpose. "I've been thinking about talent waste," he said, setting his mug down. "How many people never get a shot because no one looks twice?" Denise stayed silent, her skepticism a shield. "I want to create a new position," he continued. "One this company needs, even if we didn't know it." Her pulse quickened. "For what?" "Cultural liaison for international affairs," he said, his words electric. "Someone who speaks the languages, reads the cultures, handles vendors, clients, documents, everything we're stumbling over." Her breath caught, her mind reeling. "You're qualified," he pressed. "More than most of our leadership, honestly. You proved it yesterday with grace and brains." Her eyes narrowed. "This real?" "As real as it gets." "I don't have a degree," she said, testing him. "You have something better," he shot back. "Lived experience, commitment, 9 languages. You think I care about paper?" Her skepticism wavered, but didn't break. "Why me?" He leaned forward, his voice fierce. "Because I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9 a.m. Because I'm done ignoring people like you, people doing twice the work for half the credit." She crossed her arms, her heart racing. "You know what people will say." "I don't care," he said, his tone final. She stared at him, the weight of possibility pressing against her doubt. "I've never had an office job," she said. "Never had a title." "You'll learn fast." "I don't have the clothes for it." "HR will send a stipend." She gave a dry laugh, disarmed. "You thought of everything, huh?" "I'm trying," he said, a grin breaking through. Silence stretched, heavy with unspoken stakes. "What about my shift downstairs?" she asked softly. "Who replaces me?" His smile softened. "We'll find someone, but no one replaces you." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears away. "You sure this isn't a favor?" "This is recognition," he said, his voice a vow. "Long overdue." She bit her lip, then nodded. "All right. Let's see what I can do." He extended his hand. She shook it, and the air crackled with something seismic. A new chapter, unwritten but inevitable. By Wednesday, the news had ignited the building. Denise Atwater, the night shift janitor, was now an executive. Whispers spread like wildfire. She spoke a dozen languages, had a secret CIA past, was Kellerman's pet project. Some cheered quietly, saying, Good for her, but others bristled. In the staff lounge, two marketing assistants whispered over salads. I have a master's in international business, one hissed. 2 years waiting for a promotion, and she's scrubbing urinals last week? Her friend shrugged. Maybe she's got something we don't. It's Kellerman playing woke, the first snapped, checking a box. The resentment simmered in Slack channels and boardrooms, a quiet rebellion against a promotion that broke the rules. Denise felt it the moment she stepped into her new office on the 12th floor. The space was modest. A desk, a plant, a computer she hadn't dared touch, but it felt like another galaxy. HR let her keep her old uniform, not to wear, but to anchor her. That afternoon, Victor, head of international operations, strode in with a clipboard and a smirk. So, you're the new liaison, he said, his tone a blade wrapped in silk. She met his gaze. That's what I'm told. Corporate. Experience. Only from the outside, she said, a faint smile playing on her lips. He didn't laugh. Italy reports, Dubai contracts, São Paulo vendor issues. Can you handle it? She stood, unflinching. Give me a few hours, yes. He dropped the folder and left, the air sour with his doubt. That night, Kellerman stopped by. How's day one? She exhaled, leaning back. I've had worse. He grinned. Victor give you trouble? He doesn't scare me. Didn't think he would. She paused, her voice softening. Why now? Why me? You could have tossed me a bonus and moved on. He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes distant. I saw myself in you. I came from nothing. Dad fixed cars in a nowhere town. I worked. 3 jobs through college. People thought I didn't belong in rooms like this. She nodded, understanding. Now you decide who gets in. Exactly. Silence hung between them. I'm nervous, she admitted. Good, he said. Means you care. Some people will hate this. Let them, he said. We're moving forward. By Friday, her nameplate gleamed. Denise Atwater, Cultural Liaison, International Affairs. Kellerman's company-wide email was blunt, framing her as the best for the job, no charity involved. Still, the grumbling persisted. But Denise worked, quietly, brilliantly. She fixed mistranslated contracts, navigated client calls with ease, never flaunting her skill. On Monday, she joined a meeting with a Moroccan delegation, the company's stalled expansion hanging in the balance. In fluent Moroccan Arabic, she introduced herself, and the room shifted. Tension melted, trust bloomed. A partner later thanked. Her privately, his hand on his heart. No one's spoken to us like that, he said. She nodded. You matter. Midweek, Kellerman renamed the training room the Atwater Room, a quiet tribute. A staff member told an intern, she showed us greatness doesn't need a suit. That day, an unsigned note appeared on her desk. I was invisible too. You made me stand taller. Thank you. Her throat tightened, but she didn't cry. This was a door, and she'd walk through it. But doors don't stay open without a fight. On Thursday, Eleanor Craig, a board member with a razor-sharp tongue, summoned her. No degree, no training, no certifications, Eleanor said, her stare icy. You were a janitor 3 weeks ago. Denise didn't flinch. I was. Explain why you're handling international affairs. I speak the languages, know the cultures. I've fixed contracts, cleared Morocco's delay, secured Brazil's deal. Eleanor blinked, thrown. This company runs on instinct? On results, Denise said, her voice a quiet fire. Eleanor stood. You're a gamble. My life's been one, Denise replied. Outside, she sat across the street, staring at the tower she'd once cleaned. She called her daughter, needing her laugh. They talked of small things, grounding her. The next morning, word of the Eleanor meeting spread, but Denise didn't waver. She arrived early, took a call with Germany, her calm unshaken. A note appeared on her whiteboard. "We see you." Weeks later, she became a beacon. Interns sought her advice, her presence shifting the company's culture. Kellerman proposed a program, Voice Inside, to lift unseen talent. "There's more Denises out there," he said. "There are," she agreed. "They're waiting to be seen." The program launched, a fire sparked by her vision. At a Cincinnati summit, she spoke her truth. "I was never just a janitor. I was ready, but no one looked. So ask yourself, what are you missing?" The room stood, applauding. A young man approached, tears in his eyes. "My mom's a housekeeper, speaks 5 languages. I was ashamed." Denise touched his arm. "Never be. The only shame is missing brilliance." She walked out, taller, not for the applause, but because she'd carried her story, every scar, every triumph, into the light. Talent wears no uniform. Brilliance needs no permission. And when you're seen, bring others to the table.